आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्म उपनिषदम् माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्याम् मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्माः ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. This wisdom of the pure self has been with humanity from time immemorial, though it has been with such a minuscule number of people. Though I said humanity, I didn't mean with everyone. What I meant was the rishis of ancient times, through their contemplation, their inquiry, their being very keen to find the ultimate truth of life, had found this, we don't know how long ago. In the Indian tradition, we believe that the rishis had found out this truth thousands of years ago. Western historians put the Vedas, the Upanishads, and so many other of our great scriptures rather quite late. Some would say it is 1500 years ago, some would say 1000 years ago, some would say 2000, 3000 years ago. That's about it. They do not agree that it is even before all these dates. What is so fascinating is this wisdom which led to rishis being liberated. I'm not saying all rishis were liberated. Some rishis certainly were illumined, enlightened, liberated. So this wisdom of these rishis has come down to us without a break. Every generation has had a handful of illumined souls. In the last century, that was the 20th century, I'm sure there were many in our own country. There were a few probably outside too. We don't know. But in our country, in terms of the purest self-knowledge, two names stand out. Once more, there must have been more. Some of you may know some other names. So I'm not questioning the validity of the enlightenment of others, but in a manner of saying, two names mean a lot to me, and they are Ramana Maharshi, who dropped his body in 1950, and Nisargadatta, who dropped his body, I guess, in 1983. In the dialogues with Sri Ramana Maharshi, or in the talks of Sri Nisargadatta, we get plenty of material which are perfectly aligned with what the Upanishads say. Nisargadatta was so immersed in this lofty wisdom, and in his own way, not exactly identical with Ramana Maharshi, but in his own way, would come to the central point so ably, and the statements he made, especially as found in that immortal book, I Am That, are really mind blowing. On one hand, they are so high, you and I can be a little at a loss how to reach that height. On the other, the statements had such simplicity that you and I feel quite close to the truth mentioned in those statements. One of them, which someone shared with me this morning, is that Nisargadatta advises us never to think of ourselves as having a form. We stand before the mirror a number of times, or when you go somewhere, if there is a tall mirror, as we enter the hall, there is hardly anyone who would not take a look at how one looks, maybe make some slight adjustments and then proceed. Otherwise, also, we have tremendous identification with this me, beginning with the body, which has a form. And in philosophy, form does not necessarily mean physical form only. Form means anything that distinguishes us from so-called another person. So-called because in the Vedanta, that also is dismissed. Others and I is said to be a notion in thought, in the mind, which is in the grip of spiritual ignorance. So, I am tall, somebody is short. That is physical. I am obese, someone is so slim. That is physical. Likewise, color of the skin and many more. But I am telling you, when Nisargadatta tells us, do not think of yourself as having a form ever. I have no form, no shape. What does that mean? Even mentally, if somebody says, I am very intellectual and my wife is very emotional, or other way around too. Wife could be intellectual, the husband could be emotional. I am very knowledgeable, somebody else is such an ignoramus, etc., etc. Let me not make the list too long. In whatever way you define yourself, distinguishing yourself from another person, that is a form. Think of yourself as having no form. Never see yourself as having a form. This was one of the statements of Nisargadatta, and I would repeat, in spite of it being too high a statement, it has a quality where you and I feel extremely close to it. Why? As Maharshi Ramana would repeatedly clarify, every one of us discovers our own existence without any form, without any distinguishability in deep sleep. Every day, in every 24 hours period, I mean, we go into deep sleep for several hours. Not to mention the deep sleep some of us enjoy during a Vedanta satsang also. I always joke as well as say seriously that some people are listening to my Vedanta for decades because of the quality of sleep they get in my lectures. Both humor and serious. As a speaker, I don't have that privilege. For if I go to sleep, though sometimes my lecture are boring to myself also, then the whole lecture grinds to a halt. So we speakers somehow push ourselves. We can go to sleep after the lecture. So without getting sidetracked by humor and without letting any one of you think that Swamiji today doesn't want to talk about Chāndogya Upanishad, let me clarify. This quote of Nisargadatta connects directly to the section that we are going to take up in the Chāndogya Upanishad this evening in India, this morning in the West. After seeing the 8th Khanda and the 9th Khanda, in this session, which is the 14th class on Chāndogya Upanishad, we are going to see the 10th Khanda, Dashama section. And it has only 3 mantras, one of the shortest khandas. There are some khandas with only 2 mantras, and there are some khandas in the Chāndogya Upanishad itself which have only 1 mantra. That's a different matter. But in the 10th khanda, in just 3 mantras, of which the 3rd mantra is a repetition from previous khandas. Therefore, I must say what is new is only 2 khandas, there are 2 mantras, 1 and 2 of the 10th khanda. And our title slide, which we shall now show you, we say, this is where TAT-TVAM-ASI, the Mahavakya, thou art that, or in modern English, you are that, has come for the 3rd time. TAT-TVAM-ASI, the 3rd time, with a new illustration, the illustration of rivers and ocean. Rivers, Ganga or Yamuna, Godavari or Kaveri, Tungabhadra or any other, and the other rivers in different countries of the world, they come from the ocean, water evaporates and becomes clouds, and the clouds then pour the water onto the oceans or onto river first, and the river goes and meets the ocean. So the rivers come from the ocean and then go back to the ocean. That's going to be said repeatedly. The title slide itself, we have put it. Nadyaha Samudrat, coming from the ocean, Samudrameva, towards the ocean, Apiyanti, they proceed. But what has that got to do with TAT-TVAM-ASI? TAT-TVAM-ASI refers to the oneness of all that is. TAT-TVAM-ASI refers to the oneness of the totality and the individuality. There is no distinction really. And when rivers meet with the ocean, there is no distinction. Ganga no more knows I was Ganga. Yamuna no more knows I was Yamuna. Krishna no more knows I was river Krishna. A simple example is given by this Chāndogya Upanishad. That means in your life, in my life, in everyone's life, whether we have studied Vedanta or not, this movement from distinguishability. Ganga is distinguished from Yamuna. Krishna is distinguished from Godavari by scholars of geography or even common people. They say, oh, my house is by the bank of Godavari, but today my daughter, after marriage, is going to her husband's house, which is by river Krishna. Godavari is different, Krishna is different. That's called distinguishability. So, from distinguishability, there comes a time when there is no distinguishability, indistinguishable, homogeneous. All of us who are so different otherwise in deep sleep are one. Now you may say, well, the last section also talked about nectar from different flowers becoming honey, and in honey, nectar from some particular plant and the flowers thereof, and nectar from some other plant and the flowers thereof, etc., are no more distinguishable. So, this movement from being able to differentiate to being unable to differentiate was already touched upon. Then, what is the difference? They look similar, no doubt, nectar and honey, rivers and ocean. But the slight difference here is, in order to drive home the truth very deeply and firmly into us, the Upanishad brings a second illustration to highlight a different aspect or a different directionality. What is directionality? In the previous illustration of honey and nectar, it was from flowers, they come into honey, nectar becomes honey, and in honey, there is no distinguishability. Direction is nectar to honey. And here, what is highlighted is, though both ways movement has been mentioned, the highlighted aspect is ocean to rivers. When the rivers come out, that is after evaporation, after again heavy rains, all the rivers everywhere are in high tide, high level. Many rivers go to dangerous levels. Many rivers actually inundate the banks, inundate the villages and towns on their banks, causing havoc. Here they are again. Ganga is back in full water. Yamuna is full of water. So even though they have come back to being Ganga and Yamuna, they have come from the ocean where they were not distinguishable. Now they do not know that we came from that one essence. So there is a word in the very next mantra we shall show, Agacchamahe. Agacchamahe is the word to be underlined when it comes to the 10th khanda. Whereas in the 9th khanda, the word to be underlined in Sanskrit is Sati Sampadya. Sati Sampadya Navidu. While the movement is from nectar to honey, in that movement, at the end of that movement, they don't know that we were from this plant or that plant. Here, having come from the ocean and become Ganga, Yamuna, etc. again, they do not know we have come from that absolute oneness. Now leave the flowers and honey behind, leave the rivers and ocean behind. You and I go through a similar situation when we have reached deep sleep. We do not have the least idea. I was a king and he was just a little soldier. I was the managing director and he was just a junior level clerk in one of our offices. All of that goes. So, in deep sleep, one doesn't know any high or low. Whereas talking of ourselves. When we are playing different roles and our ego is up and active, we are looking at somebody and right away thinking or why thinking, telling our spouse, and don't waste time talking to her, talking to him. That person's net worth is less than 1/100th of ours. So let's not waste time with him. So even as we are taking that, we do not realize that we, that so-called low net worth person, and we, the high net worth persons, are all actually that one truth that became evident in deep sleep. So I have quoted this before, but once more, Ramana Maharshi used to advise his students to make it a major sadhana. What? To always bring to one's own mind, what was my nature in deep sleep? What was I in deep sleep? Was I the managing director? Was I a junior clerk in a small tiny office? What was I? Maharshi used to say, ask yourself that. As you know, even when problems were taken to him, he would ask, I wish there was a video or audio of his. We have some videos, but he is not speaking in them. And we have no audios. I wish we could have seen what his facial expression was when he would ask his visitor, who is crying that his very expensive house came down in ashes, let us say. Ramana Maharshi would ask that visitor, you are so sorrowful about the house that got burnt. Did you have this sorrow in deep sleep? What a question. So, Ramana's words, Nisargadatta's words, for that matter, the words of the Upanishads, do indeed baffle us. They do indeed puzzle us. How will it help for me to remember or think of deep sleep? I have to face the reality of waking state. That's our counterpoint. But these awakened ones are hinting at the possibility of you and me. There is a possibility of you and me being in touch with, as though, the state of deep sleep, even when we are otherwise active in waking state. Maharshi Ramana coined an expression for that. Jagrat Sushuddhi. Jagrat is a present participle. When you are awake, though you are awake, when you are awake, Sushuddhi, you are so much in touch with deep sleep that you are able to put things of waking state in perspective. How interesting, in Bhakti Shastra also, we are asked to hold God amidst all ups and downs of life, amidst our work, even as we are tired or some other time we are bubbling with energy, doesn't matter. Sarvasu avasthasu, in all states, in all conditions, sarvatha vartamanaha api. These are the expressions we find in the Shastras. Matter what, the whole town is worshipping us as a saint. Okay? All the whole town is throwing stones at us, rotten eggs at us, calling us a hypocrite, fake, a failure, a burden on the earth, or whatever. Sarvatha vartamano, praised or insulted, Bhakti Shastra says, hold on to loving remembrance of God. And you and I, if we have not trained ourselves properly, would question, how is it possible? Let these rotten eggs stop coming towards me. Then definitely I'll remember God. Or, let all this praise stop. Now when people are praising me, it feels good. I don't want to think of God. They are coming with garlands in their hands. And looks like just another 7 people are left. I will bow down, I will bend and take those 7 garlands also. Afterwards, I'll think of God. This is our worldly mind. But if we are spiritually advanced, garlands or chappals coming towards us, we won't let go of remembering God. Bhakti language. In Nana's language, no matter what is happening, know yourself to be formless. In deep sleep, you are formless. So the title slide gives this example. So the difference, friends, is just this, the two directions. The previous one talked about entering deep sleep and then not knowing what we were before. Here, coming out of deep sleep, Sataha agacchamahe. We have come from Sat. Deep sleep is Sat. Deep sleep is pure Sat with no trace of anything else. Vasanas and avidya and some, what do you call them? Uh, Bija Rupa Vritti. So many words are used. See, the human intellect is like that, especially the Indian intellect. Even Amartya Sen wrote that book some years ago, maybe not in Vedanta context or spiritual context, but the title, I know only the title I have. Neither had the inclination nor the time to read that book, but Amartya Sen's book is titled The Argumentative Indian. So a simpler version of it could be the talkative Indian. The Indian mind was so active, writing, giving expression to their conjecture. Therefore, the negative side of it has been, even in the Vedanta Vangmaya, the vast literature of Vedanta, a large number of books have been written with certain portions that may not be correct. Certain portions which the author might have written sincerely, give pleasure to him or her, but we need to take those portions with a grain of salt. So, in deep sleep, there is pure sat. Sati sampadya, said the ninth khanda, and sataha agacchamahe says the dashama khanda. Let's see the second slide, and that is where this whole matter is expressed most explicitly. The third slide, or rather the second slide, is where it introduces Ima Somya, oh dear one, Nadyaha Purastat Pratyah Sandante. Rivers flow, the eastbound rivers flow more towards the east. Westbound rivers flow towards the west. So, in a certain context, Purastat means go ahead, and the context is eastbound. Go ahead means, in that context, ahead is the eastern direction. And Praschat literally means go behind. So, in that conjecture, in that visualization, west is behind. And the westbound rivers going backward, meaning going to west. So, that's how the mantra visualizes directions. See, just as depending on how you stand, north could be to your right and south to the west. Or if you stand 180-degree turned, north could be to your west and south could be to your east. The north could be to your left and south could be your right. So imagine a particular way of standing or being positioned where Prachyaha, the eastbound ones, go ahead, that is towards east in that particular setting, and Pratityaha, the westbound ones, go behind, that is westward. Taha samudrameva piyanti. They come from the ocean and they then go back to the ocean only. Let me tell you whether There was a particular word which kind of self show to you. Adi Shankara mentions. Ah, here we are. Simple, nothing profound, but sometimes it is nice to read even the simple sentences of Adi Shankaracharya, where what we have said, Samudrat Samudram is what is said in the mantra, right? Taha, those rivers, Samudrat Ambho Nidehe. Then he adds, Jaladharaihi Akshiptaha. Jaladhara is a beautiful word in Sanskrit for Megha, cloud. A cloud holds water. Jaladhara. Jaladharaihi Akshiptaha. They have akshipta, they have sucked or they have taken so much of water from the ocean, water that evaporated, then condenses into the Jaladhara. Jaladharaihi akshiptaha, and after some time, punar vrishti rupena patitaha. Then they fall down like rains. Gangadi nadi rupinyaha. Punaha samudram ambho nidhim eva apiyanti. Sa samudraha eva bhavati. A simple but nice sentence in Shankara Bhashya. Saha samudra eva bhavati. Ta yatha tatra na viduhu. Yamahamasmi, Yamahamasmi. So this I am this Ganga and another body of water. I am this Yamuna. They don't know. But the reference is different here from directionality point of view. That's evident in the slide 3, which is mantra 2. Let's go to the mantra 2 now. 6th chapter, 10th section, second mantra. Evameva khalu soumya, O pleasing one, my son, ima sarva prajaha, sataha agamya, na viduhu. The word to be underlined is agacchamahe and agamya. See, both of those words are talking about coming from sat, na viduhu, sataha agacchamahe. Especially in strained relationships, let's say when you and your partner are at loggerheads over some matter, does the thought come in you that he and I both are basically the same Satchit Atma? No. Why talk about strained relationships between business partners or life partners, whatever? Most of the time, our human mind is so noisy. Most of the time, this mind of you and me is agitated, even though we may know a lot of Vedanta. Even scholars like me, most of the time, are worried about something not completed. Oh, I haven't replied to his email. Oh, I have not responded to her WhatsApp message. Oh, my two of my books are not yet completed. Oh, and so on. Do I think at that time, having learned, having taught Chāndogya Upanishad, wait a minute, primarily, I am that Satchit existence awareness who doesn't need to write any book, not even a single page. I'm that Sat which doesn't have to reply to any email. It neither occurs to us, nor if somebody gives those sentences to us, nor are we able to appreciate it. We rather fold our hands and say to that person who might remind us of our Sat Swarupa, thank you, my dear. That you tell me later, but now tell me how I can catch up with my pending work. Right? The mind of ours is soaked in, seeped in, or steeped in that duality. Who am I? I am the person who who has not earned enough money. Who am I? I am the person who has not completed writing a book. Who am I? I am someone whose children don't want to come and meet father at all. Always form, always description, always I am this, I am that. So the mantra says very powerfully, Sataha agamya na viduhu. Sataha agacchamahe iti na viduhu. However, the Upanishad mantra very compassionately takes what you and I look at ourselves as somewhat real, or coming one notch below. Teha Vyagrova Simhova. The mantra actually goes long line, just been translated, put in translation here anyhow. I did not put the Sanskrit to save some space. The whole line is Vyagrova Simhova Vrukova Varoha Varahova Kitova Patangova Damshova Mashakova. 8. So English translation puts all of them, tiger or lion, wolf or pig, insect or grasshopper, gadfly or mosquito. So, because of error in seeing, I would use the word, there is a certain error in seeing, that is asamyak darshana. Upanishads are not here to remove anything that physically is existing or even in some subtle form. Error is not a thing. Error is not a thing. That is a philosophical proposition. Error is not bhava rupa. You are not seeing properly, and the Upanishads help you see properly. And in seeing properly, the so-called you or so-called I, which was unable to see carefully or properly, also dissolves. That separate I. The pure I remains. So, one notch below, this is the reality. One notch below meaning it's not the pure truth. In the pure truth, no one becomes anything. No one gets into duality. Duality is a matter of avidya. That is avidya bhumi. This is a profound teaching. And what comes in the way of our appreciating this pure teaching, Chāndogya Upanishad, and more specifically the Karika, the explanatory shlokas written by Gaudapada, says it in plain words. Etat tad uttamam satyam yatra kinchin na jayate. The best truth, the purest truth, the most exalted truth is, whether you understand or not, yatra kinchit na jayate. No, nothing happens. No one is born, no one dies. Other scriptures don't say it in such open terms. Even Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna begins his instruction in the second chapter when Lord Krishna begins his great Upadesha, running into the next 17 chapters. He doesn't say it with that straightforwardness as Gaudapada does. But if you think about it, that's what he says. Arjuna, what are you talking? Neither you nor I, nor these kings are dying. No one died. No one is ever born. All this doesn't apply to the truth of you, me, or these kings. There is a statement right away in the first 2 or 3 shlokas. Sri Krishna gives a shock treatment to Arjuna. How much he understood that time, how much he could digest that time, Sri Krishna would know. Not you or me, not even Arjuna. So here too, I say one notch below from that sense. Just like to explain refraction, a physics teacher may say, put this pencil in a glass of water. You see, it bends by some angle, theta 1. If it is kerosene, theta 2. If it is some other, there are so many liquids, petrol, diesel, so many different liquids which are translucent. So though it is in the glass and you have put a pencil into that liquid, half of the pencil is in air, other half is in that liquid, and because of the difference of specific density of the medium of air and the medium of that liquid, the pencil bends to different angles. Wait a minute. Does the pencil actually bend? And the student says, sir, actually yes. But we want to know how that seemingly bending, that also changes depending on the liquid. Theta 1, theta 2, theta 3, theta 4, theta 5, theta 6. It could be a high school experiment with different liquids in the glass, putting the pencil and through some instrument measuring the angle of bending. The boy or girl makes a table and then submits it. If it's an examination, practical examination, someone who recorded all the angles by which the pencil bent against what medium the second one was. The first one is common, air. Second one was different liquids, right? Someone who recorded properly is given full marks. Physics practicals. The truth is, which the teachers know, the students also know, the pencil never bent. That is the Gaudapada truth with regard to our existence. Yatra kinchin na jayate. And that truth which remains unborn and undying is not exclusive to me. It's not exclusive to her or him. It is one in all. And it is that subtlety, anima, anutva. So in the last slide for the day or for the evening, we have the same mantra as came in the previous two classes really. Sa esha, saya esha anima. Shvetaketu, feel blessed. You are fortunate. You and I together are able to behold that subtle truth. And aitadatmam idam sarvam. Idam sarvam. Everything here, which one notch below in the avidya bhumi, in the frame of reference of spiritual ignorance, which I would prefer to call erroneous seeing. In erroneous seeing, one is a tiger, another is a lion, third one is a wolf, and the fourth one is a gadfly. Fifth one is a mosquito, sixth one is a housefly, etc., etc. But this anima, this subtlety, idam sarvam, aitadatmyam, all these have this truth as their atma. That is the special compound there. Sat Satyam, that undifferentiated reality is the Satyam. Sa Atma, that is the self of every one of us. Tattvamasi, you are that, O Shvetaketu. And if you realize this, if you contemplate upon this, if you get the highest clarity on this, greater the clarity, less will be your need to meditate, to put in effort, to say, what was it? Let me bring it to my mind again. All that effort will be not required if you have had the clearest perception. Tattvamasi Shvetaketu. Your sorrow, your boredom, your loneliness, your anxiety about future, your regrets of the past. You are not doing well in mundane terms. You are not doing well in spiritual sadhana. You are not succeeding in getting over negativities and make a long list of all your problems. All of them are reduced to nothing. Such is the teaching of this Mahavakya. Shvetaketo Tattvam Asi. And now Shvetaketu is mighty pleased on one hand, but on the other, he wishes to know, but how exactly is it that though this may be the truth, I would not dispute you, O revered father. How come somehow erroneous seeing persists? How come this Jiva Bhava doesn't go so easily? That is his doubt, as is clear by the next section, where an axe is put to one part of a tree, and on one hand, certain liquid is oozing out of that part of the tree, like blood would ooze from us if we were hurt. On the other, leave alone just a wound, even if a branch were to be cut and thrown aside, the tree remains alive. Likewise, this Jiva Bhava is very strong. What is it that makes Jiva Bhava so strong? The example at once points to the resilience of individuality and underlying that the indestructibility of the pure self. That is the next example that will come. So I wish to say that all the 9 occurrences of Tatvamasi are meant to answer 9 different sanshaya, vichikitsa, or sandeha, shanka. So all these doubts have to be removed. So how wonderful. It's not just repeating for repeating sake. No. Every one of the illustrations has a certain purpose. Therefore, Shvetaketu says, O revered sir, tell me once more, Bhuyeva Vijnapayatu. And Tata Somya iti says the father. The father more than gladly says, I would definitely let you know. Both the son and the father, imagine, are in an inspired state. And therefore, this immortal dialogue between the student and this teacher has been coming down to us for thousands of years. How wonderful. How blessed we are. We too got became a part of this great dialogue. And our fathers, mothers, our grandfathers, our grandmothers, our great grandfathers and great grandmothers, and so on. How wonderful it is for thousands of years, like the Olympic torch, this torch of Vedanta is being brought forward. How great, how beautiful. Om Namah Paramarashibho. Namah Paramarashibhah.